Well, you can do that if you want.
We have public participation. Public participation enables the public to address the commission about an item that is not on the agenda. If you wish to address the commission, please state your name and address for the record. The Arizona Open Meeting Law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking action on an item which is not listed on the prepared agenda. The commission members may, however, respond to criticism made by those addressing the commission, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. Public comment should be limited to 3 minutes reading time. Do we have anybody online for public comment? If not, we'll move on to new business. April Water Awareness Month update, Tamara Lawless.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Tamara Lawless, Water Conservation Program Manager. Just going to give you guys a little background information on what we're planning for Water Awareness Month, which is next month. So usually during Water Awareness Month, or at least the past several years, we've been doing kind of two things at once. We've been doing like our general Water Awareness Month outreach, and we've also been participating in the Mayor's Challenge, which is this annual nationwide challenge that's sponsored by the Wyland Foundation. This year, they are not doing the Mayor's Challenge, so we're just focusing on local programming. And in many ways, that was exciting for us because we're just going to really try to hit hard some of the things that we want to achieve. So usually when we are out and tabling, we have a really brief interaction with members of the public because, you know, it's a little bit chaotic. And so what we are trying to do this time is to do these more intimate and longer conversations with people about their homes and what they can do in their homes to improve their efficiency. Hopefully you can see the banner I set up in the back. But it says, come chat with us. Water efficiency makeovers is what we're branding it. And so what we've done is we're essentially going to set up office hours for our staff at some, you know, areas around town, either at big public events or at community spaces where, you know, there are a lot of members of the public present. And we're going to, you know, just be there for these like focused interactions for people that either see us promoting this, you know, through social media or just happen to be there. And so we're going to have these hopefully longer, more in-depth conversations with people about their home. So the first thing that we'll ask them is if they're a renter or if they're a homeowner. And if they're a renter, then maybe we'll talk about aerators. We'll have like an aerator April. We usually have a faucet with us where we can show them how easy it is to just spin off an aerator and put on a new one. Most aerators in a bathroom use 1.5 gallons a minute. We often will replace those with 1/2 gallon a minute aerators. So essentially, you know, popping that down by 2/3 consumption per minute. If they are a homeowner, then we can chat with them about if they have outside landscaping or not. We have a lot of interventions in landscaping, so we can offer to do an irrigation consultation. We can offer moisture meters. We can talk about whether or not they have turf or trees or shrubs. We have our low water landscape rebate programs. So we can kind of talk to them about their goals for outdoor use. And then for indoor use, we can talk to them about, you know, are your toilets older or are they updated? Might you be interested in getting a rebate? Would you be interested in us coming to your home and measuring the fixtures and giving you some information? So we'll have some interventions that we can take right there in person, like sending them home with shower heads or aerators. And then we can also get them into some of our other programming as well. So I put up some of the places that we're going to be. So on April 1st, we're going to be at the downtown library from noon to 4. April 2nd, we'll be here at City Hall during the council meeting. We're also going to do a proclamation for Water Awareness Month and potentially one for Water Professionals Appreciation. The next day we'll be at the G Lively Ice Rink in 2 shifts from 10 to 2 and then 4:30 to 8. On April 10th, we'll be at the Josie Montoya Senior Center from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We are doing a Rio de Flag plant tour, so that's a little bit different from kind of these like conversations, but we'll still have our table available for people that are at the tour if they want to chat about their home's efficiency. On the 17th, we'll be at Hal Jensen Rec Center from 10:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. We will be at the Earth Day Festival as usual at Bushmaster Park from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's also the Full Steam Ahead, which is like a science event kind of targeted at kids. That's at Fort Tuthill. We'll be at that from noon to 5 p.m. We're also doing a partnership with the Aquaplex, giving people free admission if they're coming for open swim that day, and we'll have our table set up there. And then during quite a few of these events, we're also going to have a secondary table set up to just talk about water rates. So Director Jones is going to make some appearances, talk to people about what's the deal with water rates? Why are they changing? How are they going to change? And then we'll also have computers set up at our stations where if people haven't really been paying close attention to their bill, we can easily pull up their consumption data and look at it with them and walk them through it. So kind of big goals for the month, just hoping to really get into the details with people and give them some real focused attention and talk to them about water efficiency. And I think it's really important as we talk about rates changing to give people some of that empowerment on how they can shift behaviors and shift fixtures to lower their bill if that's what they desire. And that's it. That's what we'll be doing. Do you guys have any questions, comments, anything?
Rob, Bain?
Yes, Tamara, sounds like a great schedule. How do people learn about these? I know some you mentioned are, just in places where the public will be in general, but do you have a way to
Yeah, so we did partner last year with the city's like main social media channels. So we'll be pushing it through on those. And then we found that a lot of times the best way to find people is just to meet them where they already are already. So we tried to find places that are going to already have a lot of foot traffic and just try to bring them over. Hey, do you have a few minutes to chat about water efficiency while you're waiting for your kid's hockey game or while you're here at the library? And I would say that tends to be the majority of the people that we interact with is just we happen to be where they are.
I've heard the spots on KNAU about the water rate studies recently, and I don't know whether the city has to pay for those spots or not.
I think
I'm
sure
seeing
they
nodding
do.
heads, you do.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be, I don't know if if you've budgeted for that, but that would be one place too.
Yeah, we actually do have a year-long partnership with KNAU, and I think there is one for Water Awareness Month that directs them to the Water Awareness Month website, which will have the scheduled events up there as well. But thanks for reminding me to update that. Okay.
Any other questions? I have one.
Yes.
When you pull up, if they want to look at their water usage data,
Yeah.
can you pull up multiple years or just, that year?
Yeah, so what comes up when we use our customer interface is everything that was imported in 2016. So that's the easiest for me to see is back to 2016 data.
That's kind of cool. Can
Yeah.
look at
Yeah,
like 7 years of data.
definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Great. Hope it goes well.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, I guess we will move on to old business. And we're going to get a rate study update from Aaron Young.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Erin Young, Water Resource Manager. We agendize time for any questions on the rate study. We don't have a formal presentation. We prepared a PowerPoint and materials for the Monday joint meeting. That should be published later this afternoon or tomorrow on the city's website. We'll send that to you as soon as we're aware it's published. That will include an outreach update, everyone we've been reaching out to and speaking with individually. So do you have any questions about what we've already discussed?
I was curious if any of this information is being filtered into the local newspapers, maybe the online areas, to educate the public instead of, to bring them up slowly, because all of a sudden the rate will be there. And that could save a lot of pressure for you guys.
We are required to post changes to rates and fees in the newspaper. I believe at the 60-day notice, which I believe is April 16th or 19th, actually. So we'll present to council and the Water Commission in April all the proposed changes to fees. It's then published in the newspaper. Is that correct, Rick? That 20 or 30 days out is the, Marion's shaking her head as well. 20 or 30 days out is when rates and fees are published in the newspaper. What we have been releasing are press releases that these meetings are happening and that the rates are being evaluated and they might change. We've emailed, sent probably 1,000 or more emails to different groups letting people know that we're having these discussions. But until we have the final rates and fees proposed, we can't post something in the newspaper because we have so many options and numbers out there still. So does that kind of help?
Okay, that's what's required. What I'm referring to is more salesmanship. In other words, if you got projects or something the public got to know about, which will be part of the reason the rates are going up. Different, just like maybe about repairs on major systems, pipes and stuff like that. I'm looking to help the council, because it's also election time, is not getting the public not getting blindsided by the rate increases, and have a little salesmanship in there about our department.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and second that motion. I read the newspaper, actually get it in paper copy. I know that's weird, but support the local, right? I could be wrong, but I don't think I've seen an article about this. And it seems like, I know maybe you don't want to go too fast, but it almost seems like if you're doing all these press releases, Adrian, whatever his name is, the guy who does a lot of the local stuff, would have picked up on it and it would have been in the paper. Did I miss something? Or is that a good idea to get something out there now? Or is it just a bad idea maybe? I don't know.
We do think it's a good idea and we have issued press releases. I think there was one article, our press release made it into the Daily Sun. We did have a reporter show up at one of our meetings and interviewed Shannon. And I see Lisa has her camera on. I think she can add. We do want to get the word out.
Yes, this is Lisa Dean, Management Analyst. Public Affairs Office has been managing a lot of the outreach for as far as mailings and rack cards and that kind of outreach. And I've seen what's basically the FAQ or their rack card in the newspaper, because I get the paper version of the newspaper too. And I've seen it in the paper. I've also seen it pop up on my screen in online, on the online version, where you get some ads. So they are promoting that. How much, I don't know, because our division is not overseeing that, but the Public Affairs has been sending some of that out, just to clarify.
I heard the NPR. I was like, oh my gosh, our rate study is on NPR. Yay. We do care, even though we're not necessarily the division, overseeing this. We do care and we're tracking. In the packet for council are probably 12 slides of our outreach efforts. And I'll try to include the newspaper article, the date, and maybe a picture of it for Monday. And then if you want to provide feedback to us on Monday on other things we could be doing, that would be fantastic.
What's the general strategy for approaching the public with defending the rate increase? I mean, what kind of broad strategy are you taking with that?
We have developed, I think, 5 talking points, kind of higher level, the positives of what you get with the water, wastewater, reclaimed water service, and how supporting, rates in general relates to these 5 topics. And off the top of my head, I can't list them, but it's, water reliability, it's safe water quality, and Lisa might have the 5 topics ready, but we're aiming our messages under those 5 key topics. And if you go to the cleanwaterflagstaff.com website, we highlight those 5. So we're trying to not get into the details of these things with the public. We're trying to keep things high level. If that does that answer your question?
Well, I'm just thinking we're looking at some pretty stiff rate increases coming. And for myself, if I was just part of the public, I would want to know, well, what's the cause? What are we funding with that rate increase? Obviously, there's inflation of everything. Salaries have gone up. Are there other things like this may be going into the weeds, but we haven't had a rate study done, for 7 years now? So we've had flat rates for the past 3 or 4 years. So, I don't, that could explain part of our problem right now. If you see what I'm driving at here, I don't know if that's going too far into the weeds or not, but
We do include those phrases within our messaging, within the press releases, on our FAQs, on the cleanwaterflagstaff.com. And in some of our messaging, we mention, we haven't had a rate increase since 2020, and these other things that you mentioned.
This is what I'm talking about. Just what we're talking about right now should be put in public, available online, in the newspaper. Talk to the gentleman that did come to one of your meetings from the newspaper, because, I mean, it's not, everybody's dealing with the loss of value of the dollar, which reflects in increases in their food, everything. So it's not unreasonable for this water department to have increases, but it needs to be explained, not just slapped in there and say, here's what it is, live with it. I think you need to do some salesmanship, and I think you could probably get the fellow from the newspaper to really help you do that.
You're right. I mean, working with the reporter is better than a reporter showing up and highlighting what they see is important. If we can help manage the message and work with the reporter, that is an advantage. And I would think, we should have the opportunity to, interview with reporters when they ask for information. Would you like to add anything, or Lisa?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think what I would add is So I do think that we are communicating those points. I think building up to this level, our communication team has been very strategic in making sure that the communication aligns with as the directives align. So I think it's with intentionality that the communication doesn't get ahead of the process. So I think what's being communicated now is they know we're doing a rate study. We're putting it onto our website. We're asking for their comments and stuff to come in. I believe a lot of the engagement into the community comes as we work through even the Monday meeting, the joint council commission meeting. As we finalize directions, it begins to frame that because we don't want our messaging. Our messaging has to stay broad until the directions are specific given, and so we're kind of built that way. And so why I think while sometimes on the surface it seems like the communications isn't going on, I think that's because we're all involved in the process of developing and creating those things like the financial model and those directions um, of the capacity fees, all these bits and pieces we've been involved in. So I feel like we've been doing it for a while and you're wondering, well, where's everybody else? But we need to lay that foundation before we, so again, they know that it's occurring, but the specifics come in the right time in the process as to develop. And so to Aaron's point, that is the month of April as it aligns with those directions as we begin to finalize, as we make that final turn in the process, the things are being defined and then the communications that go out can now be more specific and become more tangible. I think on a side note, I think we've been very strategic too in talking with our partners in the community. So I know I've met with multiple partners as well as Erin and her team. So that maybe that's not in the newspaper, right? But it's going to, again, some of the significant users, the representatives that from our construction industry to our HOAs to our commercial communities that we're working and talking through. They are watching to see how it evolves because it is this process and making sure that we're filling in the gaps and information when they have questions, making ourselves available that they can come sit down with us and they can dig a little bit further to understand the process. But again, making sure that we're not getting ahead of ourselves on letting those assumptions or them filling in the pieces until we've done our due diligence with the commission and with council to work through the process of those directions. But I think a lot of communication has come out. I've seen the communication plan from the team. I see the press releases coming out, and it's like this building the anticipation. And if anything, that I've had to deal with is kind of that patience of knowing that well, you saw Tamara's list of I think like 12 different events, right? Where there's the tabling where it's not just about putting it in the paper and or making you go to our website. Is as you touched on, is we go to where the people are at. That's kind of our intent is where the people are at, that's where we want to be and make ourselves available, as well as through these meetings, right? So even our conversations, we make our presentations available to the public. Our meetings are recorded. We do refer people back to conversations that are happening and try to highlight, again, the process where we're at and what they can expect and the timing, the directions that have already been provided that are building that model and making sure those communications are occurring. So keeping people on update with the process, but not letting the communication get ahead of that process. So I'll stop there, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Bales?
Thank you. Excuse me. In the last meeting minute notes, there's a timeline for next steps. And that does kind of outline, I think, a process for making information available and you know, working from the end of March into April, May, June, and July. Uh, you know, there are several working sessions planned for April to uh, develop policy topic discussions, and then the notice of intent, which the city plans on putting out on April 16th, I assume, and then public hearings after that. So in June and July. So there should be ample opportunity for getting input and feedback from the public throughout that whole process. And I assume that the city is still, you know, at a comfortable place within that time frame for developing this information.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
We are always going after grants. And I know Shannon is conscious of that. And I just wonder, the grants that when we get were presented earlier this year, stuff that we wanted to do, that we're applying for grants, is that process onward and going? And have we had any accepted luck with grants, or have we been turned away?
We have had some success. I mean, one in my program that comes to mind is with the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, the Water Conservation Grant Fund, and Tamara Lawless was awarded, I think, an 80 or 90,000 grant for our non-revenue water management program. And we're working on a grant acceptance award under the same program for advanced metering, which is a $1 million grant. And we have other successes within water services as well.
As you get progress on those, could we be informed? Because I think it's very important for the money issues. And if we hit a home run someplace and pick up a couple million here, a couple million there, pretty soon we're doing pretty good.
Actually have a draft press release that needs to go out to announce the water conservation ones. So
Don?
Thank you. I noticed a announcement online from I think it was Department of Water Resources about their grants available for the coming year, and I'm sure the city is aware of those, most of them anyway. You mentioned a couple of them. But for the commissioner's benefit, if you go to the ADWR webpage, and you'll probably see some clickable text there about what kind of grants are available to fit within the framework of the different opportunities or infrastructure needs for communities around the state.
I guess I can mention this. There is a collaboration between the water department and sustainability, I believe, an EPA related grant for sizable amount of cash, I think, so. Rob Bain.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the latter part of this discussion is emblematic of one thing I would want to bring up. I know you mentioned earlier that you like to go back to the 5 themes, high-level themes, and you said don't like to get down in the weeds too much. I think those high-level themes like you're getting reliable water and so forth, for better or for worse, I think people do assume that. I don't think that's that's their base expectation. But to persuade them why sizable rate increases might be worthwhile or necessary, I think it might be worthwhile to occasionally be willing to go down into the weeds, maybe with some case histories. And maybe there's a capital project where, the bids came in way over what was expected, or, the delays on getting pipe, or, what have you. But, being able to illustrate the details of, the pain you guys are going through might occasionally be worthwhile rather than always staying at the high level. So just a thought. You might, especially if you were to have an interview with one of the reporters, they often like to write up case histories, and to have 1 or 2 or 3 of those in your hip pocket might be a nice thing to have.
I really appreciate that point of view. And sometimes, it's hard for us to see that. And I've been looking back through prior things that have been happening, in the newspaper and the prior rates and such. And I think water commissioners in the past and council, they've written like an editorial for the paper. And that if you feel you might have a role in helping us communicate, I don't know if it's appropriate to pitch the ball to you guys, but we would really appreciate, I think, working together on something like that. We're working feverishly to develop materials and If something is rolling around in your brain, like, boy, this would make for a great news piece, um, I think we could work together on that. And hopefully I'm not stepping out of bounds of my, but I saw some strong pieces written in the past by council members and commissioners, even like 30 years ago, you know. I was like, wow, that's cool that they were dealing with that issue, and I'm reading about it today. So
Actually, that very thing has been on my mind, so.
Yeah, I sense just from the discussion here, there's quite a strong interest in this topic from commissioners, and maybe that should be, well, almost to make it a future agenda item is too late. Maybe that's something maybe we need to take up offline. But I would recommend before the next city council meeting where the, you know, doubling of rates is discussed, you might want to actually, before that meeting, have an interview with Adrian, what is his name, Scabelund? Is that the reporter's name? And so he would have an article ready to go as that news breaks. And it's not, the news breaks and then he writes the article and has to reflect the negative reaction. You know, have that interview before the news breaks. And, you know, you can, in a calm atmosphere, give him the full logic leading up to this, and you may be able to shape the way the message is conveyed a bit.
Yeah, you probably don't want to have a headline that says water rates to double. That may not be a good way to approach it, so.
they choose the headline. Yeah, you're right. So we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, if you can proactively address it, that'd probably be a good idea.
I'd make a motion to strike what you just said from the record.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Did I say double? No. Any other thoughts or comments or questions? Thank you very much for the update, Aaron. Appreciate it. And I guess now we'll move into informational items, from the chair, commission, or staff. We have anything out there? Don Bills.
Thank you. We developed this tracking sheet for the Water Commission several months ago. And in looking at it the last couple of months, I see a number of items that are listed in the yellow, you know, with very brief descriptions. And I'm wondering, Shannon, if you might be able to provide a little bit more detail on what the uncertainty is with some of those items. I do know that the vacancy rate shows a significant improvement from last month. I think it was, I don't know, 23% last month, and it appears to be 18% this month. So can you maybe provide a little bit more back
Yeah, if you could,
or some of the others?
Jen, if you could just give a really quick description of the project too. Some of these I'm a little hazy on, actually.
Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bills, yeah, I'll touch on a few. So, yeah, again, so we started including this, the snapshot, trying to incorporate that. So always open to feedback. I still say it's relatively new, but we have been doing it for a few months. Again, we want to make sure that that information is available. So again, kind of the intent is looking at, like status in the timeline, looking at the budget and the constructability. And if all those things are kind of hitting right, we call that green. If it's not something we feel like we're working on. By the time it gets a level to a level yellow, or when you change it to yellow, just means like one of those things may not be necessarily lined up. So I will just take a few minutes. I'll start at the top and touch on some of those. So the Schweitzer Canyon transmission line, that one's in the green. This is a water replacement program on the north part of town. Currently under construction, moving along, expected to be done this fiscal year. That one is in the green. Lake Mary basins. These are the sedimentation basins at Upper Lake Mary Water Treatment Plant. This has kind of been on our list of things to do for a few years. Last year we had um, that project going out for solicitation for bid. We do have 100% design. We were taking it out for bid, but we also had an application for grant funding for this project. So the solicitation for bid was pulled down at the advice of city advisors. Because once it goes to bid, we would no longer be eligible for the grant because there could be provisions in the grant that would change the bid. So because we were under consideration for a grant, that solicitation was pulled down early in the year, probably March or April. The grant awards came out in October when we did not make the final list. And so that project didn't move that whole year. So right now, we're looking to re-solicit that bid on the design. We've been talking with the grant staffing and saying, I think there's other projects listed for that grant and we'd rather give them provisions. This project needs to go forward. Really what I was trying to avoid is I still don't release a solicitation. Maybe I'm up for review in October. And again, maybe we don't get it. And I feel like with this particular project, it is one that needs to be done. And we've already seen this happen over multiple years. And every year we wait, again, that's one of the projects that's going up by millions. So right now we are looking to release that solicitation. We do have a budget request to fully fund that project. So one of the reasons I went to yellow is because it is changing from where we're looking for the grant that we're going to fund it. And because until the solicitation of bids come in and actually know what the project cost is, anyway, it has my attention between I know what the budget asks and what we're anticipating. But so more to come on that probably within the next 3 to 4 months. But it is our intent to release it out for bid, and when we get the bids in, we'll find a way to kind of make that work. A few other updates. Fort Tuthill well. This is number 2. The second well was drilled. We've gone through an evaluation because there is an existing pump station, well and pump station in close proximity. We went through a 15% conceptual design of utilizing the existing pump station. And so we're looking to kind of finalize that design where we would not build an additional pump station for the well, but we're going to take 2 different wellheads, leverage the same pump station. I think there's some improvements that we need to do on the pump station anyway, so kind of maybe killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But also I think create some other opportunities, and I think long-term return on investment of being just economy of scale, being able to fully maximize the equipment that's there. But that one is currently in the green. It's we don't see that necessarily as an issue. It's going into design. It's progressing well. That may change in the future, right? As we start getting closer to uncertainties, but right now there's no reason to think that would be anything different. The Inner Basin Waterline Road. Again, that one stays in the green. The water line was actually repaired earlier in 2023. I had a couple weeks we could run the North Reservoir plant. The road construction, the remainder road construction, even get to the access to the wells is still underway. Coming out of the winter season, we're expecting that contractor to again to remobilize, and that one's actually going really well. The Red Gap Ranch.
And related to that,
Oh.
I noticed, I was up north of the hospital, up by the Oaks Lodge, and I noticed there was a lot of construction work, and then I remember there was a pipeline going in to connect
Yep.
to the North Reservoir. Is that completed?
That is the Schweitzer Canyon transmission line, phase 4.
Oh, that's what it's,
Yep.
okay.
That is that one. Continuing to work with Jacobs, our design firm, on Red Gap alignment, conceptual feasibility, continuing to look for grant opportunities to entities like the Bureau of Reclamation, and still working with our legal partners to navigate through that one. But again, so it's still green, and that's still in kind of this concept planning. Again, mostly soft costs, so nothing changing dramatically there. So the Rio
Hey,
digesters.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Interrupt briefly before we leave
Yeah.
Red Gap Ranch. Obviously, there's a long history on Red Gap Ranch, and I'm wondering, is the city now at this stage where you can speak openly about whether Jacobs has come up with a cost estimate for the development of
Um,
Red Gap?
Not to that level at this point. We do expect within the next couple of months that may or may not change,
Yeah.
but as far as it's integrated into our plans, We do consider Red Gap is an asset of water services. We have a responsibility to community to make sure that we continue to maintain that and that, and so we give that right, the same interest. I know like staff was out there, I think a couple months ago, we're still checking the wellheads, depths, making sure that everything is still copacetic. I think anything as far as like into the details of, more to that, I would probably would defer probably more to the litigation team. But yeah, so nothing that that'd be privy enough to.
Yeah, I guess that's specifically my question is the litigation still at a point that it's not possible to talk about the details of this, or is that
Yes.
behind us now?
No, that's still my belief. The city hasn't changed their position on that one yet. So as far as into the details.
Okay, my understanding is the last time we had a cost estimate for that was 2011. And we've been paying Jacobs for a decade or more. And
Understand.
still don't have a result on that, so obviously a point of concern.
Duly noted. Thank you, Commissioner. So going through, so the Rio digesters, so currently we're at a 6% design. We do have a CMAR under contract doing the 6% model. The budget allowance has moved to the yellow, because again, our 6% cost estimates have, exceeded that budget. So we're currently working with our design teams, to do a couple things. Again, continue to implement any potential valued engineering on how we bring that back into budget, but also kind of begin to look into, again, the alternative analysis, which does a couple things. One, it just verifies assumptions that were made that got us to the point we are today. Like, do we come back to the same realization, or has information changed from when we originally began to look at the project? Some of that may have to do with, again, me being here for 14 months. I don't want to say trust, but verify, but it kind of helps revalue the direction of what that means. So right now, I would say that budget adherence is on my radar. So that has moved right from green to yellow. We're currently in that process, and I think there's a few things we're working on that would either continue to move that back into the green, or may facilitate further discussion, with our partners, with our commission and with the council. So a little bit early to be determined on that, but it was enough that we moved that to the yellow. Along with the Wildcat digester, which also you can see the price went to the yellow. That one is also at 60% design. The project manager is right on the verge of moving into a contract with their construction manager at risk, the CMAR. But early indications of 6% design also has that budget about $10 million over the budget. Same kind of same statement I would make on the Rio is kind of due diligence. So we're going back, looking at the valued engineering. Have we done everything that we can there to put it on the budget? And then again, what are those alternatives or assumptions that were made up to this point? Did we miss something along the line, or has information changed to this point that may create a unique opportunity? So those are being evaluated. So again, the whole project hasn't gone yellow, but we do know just on the surface at 60% cost estimates, we can see that that's beginning to track, I would say, in the wrong direction, and we're working to correct those. One of our wastewater, so the Wildcat digester is one of the Proposition 441 bond projects, as well as the wastewater bond project for the primary effluent pumps, which are at Wildcat Hill. So again, that project is in the green except for the budget adherence. So right now we do have a design. We were close to 100% design when the cost estimates came in. That was about $1 million over budget. So again, that number went to yellow, and we're working with our design firm on that one. Again, the same thing. And you always go back to what is the value in engineering, and if that's the case, what are the opportunities that we can have? So we are working with them. So that one's not as far out of the ballpark, maybe as some of the ones we just talked about prior, but all in all was enough that we know that that moves it to the yellow, and we're working to see what kind of opportunities or changes that we can make to bring that back to the green.
Shannon, could you just comment on the importance of that particular project?
Yeah, so the primary effluent pumps at Wildcat, because of elevation, so gravity flows all the way through our primary clarifiers, but the whole rest of the facility gets fed through this pump station. So without this pump station, you would have primary clarification, and then the clarifiers would overflow. So it's very critical to our operation. That's what makes it work and what keeps the plant from getting submersed under sanitary sewer.
Right. And there's no currently a backup to that system.
There's not a backup to the system. There is redundancy built within the pump station. I would say currently the pump, I believe there's 5 pumps within the pump station, but when you're moving at peak flow, with any infiltration inflow, it is typical that, you could be running 4 pumps at a time. So your duty pump gets, that criticality is there. So it has been my experience where, even last year we had a pump that went down and staff went all hands on deck, emergency work, just to make sure it's restored because, yeah, I think it's that much of a critical piece of equipment for that facility.
So that this new pump system would replace the old one? And you would have that at the old one as backup?
Um, the way it's designed now would be replacement of that pump station, and the old pump station would be demoed. Within the new pump station, it would add more redundancy and resiliency into that, along with some other controls. That's the intent. It doesn't mean that, again, if that's something that can be afforded, I mean, that's definitely where we want to be and how can we get there. But if that becomes a financial challenge, it doesn't mean that there's not other opportunities for maybe, even looking at maybe a rehab of the existing pump station, even if that wasn't a partial functionality. Those will be the things that we're working with the engineer firm. There are some recommendations that were made that they're looking at. And again, so I do remain confident because the scale isn't as much, that I feel like that's a gap we can probably close, but we just want to make sure we do our due diligence and do the right thing on that one.
Thank you.
Of course, again, another one of the wastewater bond projects is the cogeneration. That is currently at 60% design. That consultant has given those to staff. And, so I will own that one. They're waiting for comments back from us. So I think maybe just do some transition. I'm just making excuses, right? It is with us. I can talk to you about staffing and all the other stuff we're doing, but like it doesn't matter. So we're working on that. We'll get that one going. But so currently I would say that is on track. We need to get them back the comments and get to the next level. Wastewater bond for the backup generators is green. Currently, this is a project that is with an application for grant. There was an application for grant funding last year that wasn't awarded. It kind of fell off the radar, but then now has been resurrected. And so staff over the past month has really been hustling back to provide new updated information to the, I believe that's the Army Corps of Engineers. So right now that's under consideration and we would consider that a huge win. And so, so while we do have scope identified for that project, the grant funding really kind of would lay out again, ideally what that system would look like. Without the grant funding, we would go back and have considerations about, well, what do we need to be successful? So more to come on that. I appreciate some of the comments earlier about highlighting maybe some of the grant opportunities and even the awards. I think we probably do better on the grant awards than we do about what's in the queue. I think for us, it kind of just becomes that daily grind of business, but I did make a note of that. But just wanted to highlight that even though that's a bond project, we also have a grant opportunity in for those generators. And it's under consideration, so we're optimistic about that. The last wastewater bond project is the turbo blowers. So currently that's green because again, the only thing holding that up is I would say staff. So again, that's with me. There's no, we just need to kind of work through the scoping, identify what the project is. Really the intent of this is about efficiencies. I think we have a couple of other things kind of going on with some of the NORESCO reports, some of the control issues. We do have a treatment plan, facility master plan coming out. So even though I feel there's some synergy there, but again, I would just be giving you excuses. Obviously that one's on my desk. It just needs to be scoped and we need to move it forward.
What's the function of the turbo blowers?
So the turbo blowers were actually replaced several years ago. So turbo blowers were in, but I feel when you look at the control, the scalability of the blowers with the scalability of the plant, kind of creates some challenge. So ultimately, if you turn the plant down, the blowers begin to lose efficiency because they're out of their curve. We do believe that through some automation, through valving, some of our SCADA programming, and even some of our monitoring for constituents like ammonia, I think we can add some of those things and really just gain some efficiencies on how those blowers are operated. So that's kind of the intent of the turbo blowers. It's efficiency is what we're looking at. And I believe that's going to be done through probably controls and programming and more water quality monitoring and looping that information back to that the system can react.
So the blowers are integral part of the primary and secondary treatment?
The secondary treatment for the Rio. Yeah, so this is what provides air for the activated portion of that plant,
aerobic
the
portion.
biology.
Yeah.
The 8-inch bottleneck is a reclaimed line. So ultimately, when we look at the reclaim, this one is green. We think it's progressing. We have finalized design. We're looking to see about adding a potential portion of fiber to the project, even if it's just maybe a conduit for future fiber for communication. But that one will be going out shortly. I know our engineering staff is working on getting that one out. And I would say that that's probably one of 3 projects around efficiencies within the reclaim system. So increasing the size of that section of line immediately won't allow us to convey more water, but it will definitely impact system pressures, which is a positive in my world. And then as we look at the future projects, they build on each other. That will eventually add some ability to move water more efficiently and at higher volumes throughout the city. But that's kind of one of 3. So we're definitely running a marathon on that one, but it's good to see the first project coming out for that one. Schultz Creek at 180 is in the green as a go. Council on Tuesday approved the GMP. And so those, the box culverts that are going to go on 180 and begin to extend down to the Rio. I feel like that is an all go. Our project management team, Public Works and Stormwater are all going 100 miles an hour on that one. The contractor, thanks to council for approving that award for the GMP. And so again, that one's in the green and we're looking to have that one up and completed before the monsoon season.
Yeah, while we're on that topic, I just wanted to bring up one thing or a couple of things maybe. Will that change the FEMA status of the neighborhoods below the Schultz Creek drainage? And like I just pulled out my flood insurance bill, which went up by a couple $100 again this year. And if I hadn't done it early, it would be more like $3,000. Luckily, I'm under 1,000. But I'm wondering if the FEMA status would change. And I talked to the people at the insurance company that it's the city's role to interact with FEMA to change that status. Do you know if the FEMA status will change when that project is completed?
Mr. Chair, I think on that one, I did make a note. I think it's a great question. I will stay in my lane and won't go out on that limb. So I will get you that information, get it back out to the commission, but I would agree that, the city and Ed and his team, do their diligence on making sure they update those reports, for FEMA. I was just working with some of his project managers earlier, like they are updating those. So as the project's complete, I will say if information needs to be updated with FEMA, that Ed's team would do that, modification. Specifically for that project, I will defer to Ed, but I will get that information to circle it back out to make sure that you have the
Yeah.
most accurate
I'm
information.
sure everybody in those neighborhoods would appreciate it.
Of course.
And then if it does change and can save people money, that'd be great. So.
So wrapping up with the last 2, Spruce Wash projects are actually under construction. It's a whole suite of projects. Most of those are being managed by our capital engineering. And I keep seeing the street closure notifications on all those streets. And I was actually up there last week and trying to keep my head down.
Yeah, they're
It's all a good cause, right? But I know that it's painful when we're.
They
in the
were digging on
neighborhoods.
Grandview yesterday.
Yeah, so those are definitely going. Yes, sir.
It's yellow because it was kind of like a weather delay, I think.
I think because they were like designing it as they were building it, I was a little bit nervous. But it's all coming together. But yeah, so it's happening that fast. Multiple design firms, multiple contractors. Again, our project teams are delivering that. And even a shout out to the Public Works for some of their coordination efforts. But yeah, so I'd say that one's yellow because it'd be nice to have 100% design and then you bid it. But so some of this, they're like, just start building that and we'll get the restaurant up by the time you get to the end of the street. But they are doing a good job and it's working out well.
So is there an estimated completion date for? That's a little hard.
I think because it's a whole suite of projects, I think it also is in phases. So again, I think there's an update coming from Stormwater, potentially in one of the upcoming meetings where they'll talk about some of that thing. So again, I'll ask that question. But what I don't want to come in and say that's also going to be completed because I also know that it's like phases and you tell somebody it's going to be completed and then you show back up the next year and it's not complete now anymore, but
Yeah, I think it would be good to have a stormwater update since we're approaching the monsoon season.
yeah, and I think that's on our schedule to come through
Yeah.
for the update. And then the Rio de Flag project, again, also overseen by, the city's capital. That's a massive project. Mostly our involvement is with utility locates. Definitely stormwater's at the table working through, um, but yeah, so as far as I know, that one's all a go. Um, you can see the number, the dollar amount on the project. I think that probably changes up and down every day. But it's probably a little bit out of my lane, that I either defer to the project managers on that. But, I know that's something we track on here. And I do see that it's progressing. And again, we're monitoring the utility locates, which is a good indicator that things are happening when you have to move the water and sewer lines. Detention pond clean out activities. I keep it red. It's under review. I think we're really trying to understand. A lot of new basins have went in. It fluctuates with the season. So like what does, like when can you be, when can you give it the green light thinking that you're good is probably about the time that you may not be, but staff has been working to make sure those are clean. I know the Francis Short Pond was dredged out. It's highlighted there. That was cleaned in 2023 and refilled. And then to be determined, because I think really looking at the order of magnitude for me of things like the Schultz basins, and some of the other ones, um, I know there's a lot of work that they're doing with armoring and the 180, like all that work, but I'm curious to see when it's all said and done, what does that ongoing O&M look like on how often those have to be cleaned and to what magnitude? I think for me, they're yellow because, again, it's on my radar to say that, I may not have all that exactly figured out. It's kind of we think we've done a good job, but let's continue to measure that and see what that looks like.
So
Uh,
have the detention ponds at the Y been cleaned out since the runoff from last spring?
I'd have to confirm that. I don't know that.
Okay.
So I know maybe that took a little bit, but just want to kind of touch on each one of those. I kind of talked through some of my rationale and, but again, always open for feedback on how that comes through. I think, I have heard some things about, maybe putting like some completion dates might be good. And so we'll take a look at that. In addition, I think it is interesting is again, when you look at the capital projects, I know you guys look at it every month. But some of these are slower moving than others. But again, I appreciate you asking. Sometimes they're slow moving because they're on my desk. Sometimes they're slow moving just because it takes a long time to get it going. But these are definitely kind of longer projects, not things you wrap up in a few months. But thank you for the questions and appreciate the time.
Well, thank you for the update.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I had the same question as you, Bill, so. Is there any other? Aaron?
If I may go back to one agenda item, the city clerk just published the agenda for Monday on the website, so I'll send that out, just in case you have trouble finding it. And Commissioner Vane, I did get your email with your recommendations for how we might show the 5-year progression. That did not make it into Monday's presentation, but I will want to work with our team where we will be presenting that somehow. It's just not in the agenda packet because it was all we could do to get what we got in there today. So thank you for the recommendation, though.
Malcolm?
Yeah, staff knows I'm going to say this, but it's a possible, possible agenda item. There were 2 articles in the paper about a flood study on the Rio post-fire flooding. And so the Flood Control District commissioned a study, and the results in the paper were, you know, words like catastrophic and 12, 16 times. Like, don't hold me to these numbers. For the Rio flows, of course, increasing. So this had to do with a scenario where most of the upper Rio watershed burned, okay? And basically, town is flooded badly. So I asked a question of staff. Actually, I just asked if it could be talked about maybe here, but it kind of led into our chair, Kurt, was also involved, and staff actually started to respond to questions I hadn't actually asked. So what happened was staff had provided a little table that said, well, the Rio to Flag project will handle most of these events except for maybe the biggest one. Kurt chimed in and said, well, maybe there's a informational problem and we need to get out into the public and tell people that, hey, the Rio's going to deal with this. And so it kind of got convoluted and in the end, and I think what I'd like to suggest is we get a little information on this item. I don't know if it needs to be a big deal, but since part of our purview as the commission is stormwater issues, when a study is done that says if it burns, the city is going to be swamped, we probably ought to know something about it, and it showed up in the newspaper. So again, I think it got a little bit too far going with the emails, and, I have to be careful about whatever rules they call those about including too many committee members and a quorum and all that stuff, right? But staff did provide some information, like I said, a table that said that the Rio to Flag project, Army Corps project, will address most of it. And Shannon, I really don't know where to go with this. I think maybe I'd like to say it could be an informational item. I don't know if it's a new business item. I don't know what you guys think. I think at this point, it's important that we understand a little bit about what the study said. And I'm certainly not suggesting we have the county come in and give a presentation. Or actually, Joe Lovrich did the study and he was in the newspaper. And obviously that's a kind of a weird conflict thing there. But I don't know how you guys feel about it. I just feel like I need a little more information, and I feel like the information should be shared since stormwater is our purview as well. So any ideas, you guys?
John?
Yeah, I think I'd like a little bit more information as well. I know the Army Corps work on the Rio to Flag has been going on for, in excess of 20 years, probably a little bit more than 30 years. And there's been a series of changes in how they approach that project, the different fire events that have occurred on the mountain. But I also know, or I think I know, or am aware of ongoing studies, not only by the county, but the Forest Service related to, watershed changes, fire-related watershed changes, and the impact that has on runoff. So it might be worthwhile for the commission to, if either one of those groups is at a point where they can feel like they can comfortably do a presentation to hear what's going on from both sides of that.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that. I've been thinking a lot about this issue for the past few days. Matter of fact, I called the Forest Service, Coconino County Forest, this afternoon, and to find out, because there's two aspects to this. How do we prevent a fire now before they get up there and remediate the, overload of fuels up there, and make it a safer place when that fire does come. But until that work is done, how do we prevent man-caused fires? We can't do anything about lightning caused, but I know the usage of the southwest side of the peaks was changed after the Schultz Creek Road was kind of destroyed. But and last year they did not allow any motorized vehicle entrance into most of that area. I know Freeland Prairie Road was closed, Schultz Pass Road was closed. And they didn't open any accesses to the steeper parts of that terrain. And there's no camping and no campfires in that area. And I was calling to confirm that would still be the policy. The guy I talked to kind of waffled on that. So that's that.
They started that late too, into the summer.
Yeah. And that's generally, they get caught with their pants down, so to speak.
Also policing it.
Yeah.
Was an issue.
Well, so most fires are caused I think you said within 100 yards or 100 feet of a car or motorized vehicle of some kind, man-made fires. So I think the city should be, and the commissions to think about this, how do we push encouraging the Forest Service to have fairly, we can close the forest, but I think there are other ways, stepwise, things we can do. And I personally, I've told the Forest Service many times that there shouldn't be any campfires ever allowed in that area. And nor there's probably shouldn't be any camping, overnight camping in that area. Just until the area is mitigated, it's just too unsafe for anything in the Rio drainage, any housing, businesses, or if we burn the whole entire south side of the peaks, and then we have a 2-inch event, basically anything in the low-lying areas is toast.
And that's what the study says.
Yeah.
But I'd like to hear a little bit about the study. And basically, I guess, John, it burns everything else that wasn't burned last time is what the study does. So it'd be interesting to hear some kind of information about it. I don't know what.
Joe Leverage actually gave a talk to the county, and it's on their website. So if you want to get more information, I've actually scanned through it already. Some of the graphs are a little bit convoluted, but there's a lot of information on it. So.
Okay, well, if you guys, whatever you guys want to do on this issue.
Malcolm, what would you like to see happen? Can you make it specific request? Who would you like a presentation from?
I guess I would like to know the results of this study and how they impact the city. And then specifically with respect to the Rio de Flag, which information was already provided to me and to Kurt. I guess that would be my thought is I'd like to understand about the study and what happens with the Rio de Flag. Does the Rio de Flag address this? I mean, they have quantified numbers, okay? So does the Rio de Flag handle all this or not? And how does that work?
Sounds like a joint presentation by the authors of the study and the Army Corps would be the
I
ideal.
would think staff could handle it. I know that the stormwater manager already has some of those numbers. So I don't want to ask the flood control district to come in and do something for us because, well, I have a bad history with the flood control district. So, and I don't need the city manager and the county manager both in the audience again like last time. I was just thinking that staff could probably address these things.
Do we need to make a motion to include this in a future item or?
No, so I think, Mr. Chair, yeah. So we do hear the conversations. We do have, we have like a tentative internal schedule, so staff kind of knows. We know that monsoon seasons, post-season, like there's periodic updates that occur. I have already spoke with Director Shank, who's aware of it. We're working to see if we can make that an agenda item for next month anyway. I think that was moving him up a month. I don't think he had an issue with that, but I need to confirm. But if he's not available, I definitely think we can make that an item. I would like for him to present, but if he can't, we will pivot. We'll get you some information, both on not just on the study, but on some of the correspondence that's already occurred. We can continue to develop that out and share some information, which I'm sure will be an ongoing conversation every preseason, postseason, as the project develops. This is what's communicated. So we hear you, and we're already making efforts to make that an agenda item. So I think we're good with that.
I think you should also ask the access controls, because that was an issue when they were here last. They were thinking about doing, I don't know if they ever did it, to keep no fires. Now, I think they did that, but then about allowing automobiles in certain areas because they obviously are contributing to the fire.
So I also do hear that. I think that's two different discussions. One is the Forest Service. Getting stormwater staff to come do a presentation is, I would say, is relatively easy. for water services. Getting the Forest Service or the Army Corps or probably anyone outside water services to do anything is a little more challenging, but I will, I'll make an effort to talk with the Forest Service. I know they presented to us last year, to see if I can facilitate something, but for next commission, I'll make sure we have an agenda item to get you additional information on specifically the articles and the stormwater progress. We'll make that happen.
Welcome. Thank you very much. That sounds perfect. I don't want to make a big deal. I think something like that's perfect.
I think what would be nice is to have like a broad view of this problem. You look at that report and it's got a lot of graphs and trying to pool all the information together. Well, what does that mean? Especially for the general public. So we can have a refined message for the public as to what that report means and what the actions need to be. I mean, it's kind of a lot of things coming together, treatment of the forest use management, and then that will mitigate some of the hazards. So how that interacts with what happens if there is a fire and can our current stormwater system handle it? And if it doesn't handle it, how do the pieces need to come together so we're not in a bad position? Do you see a broad view of this and what needs to be done? I think would be very helpful.
Clear?
There's a lot of pieces to this.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything else on this issue? Well, go right ahead. We have a motion to adjourn. All right, I will call this meeting adjourned at 5:12. You want a second, Rob, please?